Will the economy be contracted by restricting work permits?
Well, I don't think we should look at it in terms of contracting the economy. I think when you speak of restricting the work permit, we have to look at this as a broad spectrum. I think from the perspective of the Bermudian worker who's unemployed right now, the modus operandi that is being used is to give them an opportunity to find gainful employment. That, I believe, is the backdrop in the moratorium in specific areas, is to give the average Bermudian that is out of work the opportunity to get back in the game and to be able to contribute directly to the economy. I think some of the concerns that I've heard from some of my colleagues in some of the different industries is that even with this opportunity to get back in, some of the Bermudians have not availed themselves of the opportunity. And so when they are seeing moratoriums and the people are going home, their business is starting to suffer. And I think there has to be for the minister with responsibility for immigration, it is a delicate balancing act. I am of the belief that we should give the Bermudian the opportunity to advance themselves, get in the game, but at the same time, we have to look at the natural economy and how it affects the business, the business person in Bermuda, if their businesses are being adversely affected by it. If their businesses are indeed being adversely affected by it and they have to close down, that also has a very negative effect on our economy. The bottom line is this. I believe that Bermudians have to be given the opportunity, number one, to step up and play a viable role in the economy. We have to seize that opportunity. The business person in Bermuda, they are working to make a profit. And so there has to be a symbiotic relationship with training Bermudians, finding the right Bermudian, and Bermudians being able to step up and take advantage of the opportunities.
Thank you. A related point for you, Madam Premier. Can the government make getting through immigration easier or quicker?
Simple answer is yes. The other aspect is, as you've already heard in terms of the throne speech initiative, the interagency task force. The remit of the Minister of Business Development and Tourism, the Honorable Wayne Furbert, whom I acknowledge is here today, and he is working certainly with the BMA as the independent regulator, and also had discussions with some of those who are in our overseas offices. One, in terms of the aim, is to have one point of contact which can facilitate businesses as new entrants and participants for coming in and help to streamline, and certainly also in terms of the immigration issue with work permits as opposed to visas, because remember, visas are with the Minister for National Security, work permits are with the Minister for Economy, Trade and Industry, and they as cabinet colleagues certainly discuss and dialogue, and we're also always looking at how we can improve and deal with the issues, at the same time remembering that our national economic interests and also domestic politics requires that Bermudians who are suitably qualified are given priority. While you have to maintain a delicate balance, while we have to be consistent and reflective of the need to generate economic activity, we do have a primary concern to make sure that Bermudians are given a fair chance in their country. And that's what those ministers know their primary mandate is to do.
We all know we're operating in a deficit. There's been much talk of it this morning. However, we also know, particularly from last year's budget to actual statement, that the revenue can be very variable based on a bunch of circumstances we've just heard about. As positions in business contract, then clearly payroll tax takings to the government reduce. However, in the long run, perhaps the only way to balance the budget is going to be in cost reduction versus in revenue expansion. What steps could the government take to reduce the very substantive cost of people within the civil service?
I think what we have been doing really is that when there is attrition, we are letting those positions phase out. Also with regard to a number of unfilled positions, instead of just assuming that because they're unfilled and people have been used to having staff fill those positions, we've said that there needs to be a freeze on that. This has caused some angst among both political and less political quarters, but the point is that you got to cut your cloth accordingly. And part of having this civil service review in the National School of Government from the UK means that we're looking at how we can do things better and more efficiently. And trimming any fat is important. If you were to see a review that was provided on one of the key sectors or a sector of government, you'll see that it says that over the years it's got about 100% more people in that department. Now, the decision could have been taken that you just cut and make those people redundant, but you've looked at what the comparable best practice is in other jurisdictions and how you can make that unit more efficient. And certainly as people phase out and retire, they certainly positions shouldn't be filled, no matter what the clamor is to fill it. And it also means that you see more automation. There are a number of initiatives on tap which I think are exciting, and it does require a much more innovative model than we have been customarily used to. And there's going to be some angst in some quarters, but that's why the discussions are held not necessarily in the firing line of harsh media scrutiny, but you have to have the discussions because there's a finite amount of resources, and there's also a finite amount in which you can raise in terms of revenue. So it means you got to work smarter and use smart power. And we certainly know that, and also know that it isn't about growing jobs. It is about seeking to transfer jobs and let government get out of the way of doing the things that it can't do as efficiently as the private sector. And that's the track we're on.
Thank you. The question here was, what are we doing to attract more business to the island? I think if I might twist that question slightly, could I ask each of the panelists, if they had a silver bullet to bring more business to Bermuda, what would it be? Peter, could I start with you? They all said they didn't want to know the questions ahead of time. Sure. What can I tell you?
No. Medium term, we have to find new businesses to get into. We can't just rely on financial services and tourism. Both of those have got to get a lot bulkier, a lot broader, but we need other things. So we have to look at the ocean. We have to look at something completely new. So it's probably not people of my age, it's younger generations have to figure that one out. The quickest fix is to sell more to your current customers. So for the international businesses here, Richard Winchell from ABIX here, we have to reach out and say, what is it your members need so they employ another 10% of people next year? What do they need to employ another 10% the following year? And that's how we have to start growing our business again. We have big structural problems in the hotel industry. We need to fix those first. It's completely unrealistic to expect foreigners to pour money into concrete in Bermuda when they have no hope or rational expectation of making a profit. People like that don't exist anymore. They've all gone bankrupt.
Wayne, for you?
Very similar. I would encourage much more interaction between ABIC, ABIR, those sorts of organizations, to reach out to them, just as Peter said, to see specifically what they need in Bermuda. I hate to use cliches, but less red tape, more red carpet. Making Bermuda, when you look at companies like Zug and Cayman, and my brain hurts when I hear the tomfoolery that is being spoken by our colleagues in Cayman, knowing that they learned the majority of the things that they're now doing from us. I think we have to get back into the pole position, and I think there is a clear opportunity for us to do so. There needs to be more dialogue with the alphabet soup and government to allow us to come together to find a clear direction forward as it relates to international business.
Thank you. Prem, would you like to add?
I think 2 points. And Mr. Everson referenced it, as indicated in the budget statement about the feasibility and looking at how we can exploit our economic zone in terms of the sea. That's important. But it only becomes relevant in terms of if you have enforcement capabilities. That's why some discussions have been held with the administering power with regard to how we can seek to have more, I suppose, oversight if others are fishing in our seas. And as the Minister Bean, who came in with Minister Blakely, I'm sitting at the back, there are certainly fairly significant licensing fees when you allow foreign jurisdictions to fish. Right now they fish, but we don't get any benefit or return on that. And sometimes these licensing fees, probably a conservative estimate would be $50,000. It makes no sense when we have tax information exchange agreements with Japan and others, Korea and others. You have to leverage the collateral advantages that go with that. Similarly, in terms of as you look at the issues with regard to tourism, and what comes out of that, and even the referendum on gaming, which will be held later this year. Those issues are issues which provide the opportunity for generating further revenue, but importantly, it's also what is the investor-friendly climate like in Bermuda? Are we providing the necessarily regulatory infrastructure that can be an enhancement for those who wish to do business in Bermuda? That's why changes with regard to the 60-40 are important. While you already have the ability to allow relaxations, it is more important to have it as a consistent policy change, because businesses need certainty, and that's how they are able to make decisions. They can't base it on the selective, subjective assessment of a minister of finance. They want to see it so that when their lawyers look at our regulatory framework, they see thou shalt not or thou shalt, and that's important. And things like, and regulatory relations like the Job Makers Incentives Bill are important, because it all is part of the mix of showing that you're, one, sensitive, you're innovative, and you're also welcoming. In addition, what you heard from the Minister of National Security with regard to the sales of property at the high end is also important. And also it gives certainty, and it also gives to those who wish to do business and put down some stakes here that there is an opportunity. So it's not one ball of wax, and I certainly don't like the language of silver bullet, particularly in these times, but certainly I understand that it requires more than one aspect to make sure that we have it moving forward. Thank you.